Only a small, I think there were 12 graduated from high school at the same time we did.
This one on the back, on the other back, right there. That's the one you're looking for. Where you've got the skirts alike.
Well, there's this one, but I had one that just me and Florence, but I don't see it. Well, anyway, Florence Todd, I had not to say her name, had I?
It's all right.
Well, we were good friends, and they had a farm about 2 miles or 3 outside of Roosevelt. So Florence, if we ever had a school function or wanted to go any place or like that, usually she'd come in and stay with me and stay to our place. And Mother was a beautiful seamstress. I never had anything bought until I got married. I think my first bought dress was my wedding dress. And so Mother'd always make my clothes, and she made Florence and me an outfit alike. She pleated the skirts and pleated the white skirts, and then she pleated she made a pretty white jacket, or a plaid jacket. No, wait a minute, I'll get. She made us 2 outfits alike. One was a white skirt, and another was a plaid skirt. And then we had the sweater, and then she made the dickies. She made the blouses underneath. But
Now, do you want to show us that picture of your plaid skirts there?
well, this is Florence and Florence and me, and this is one of the outfits Mother made for us that were alike. And then she made me a beautiful white plaided skirt, or plain white skirt, and I had a red silk blouse, or a red sweater, kind of a sweater. It was a silk knit jacket deal, and that was one of Earl's very favorite things. But anyway, Mother made these for Florence, and we were best friends, and all the way through high school. And we were also rivals in our schoolwork. So I don't want to sound braggy, but
Go ahead, it won't hurt you.
but when we went to graduate, they called me into the principal's office one day, and he said, Ilene, you and Florence are your scores are so close for valedictorian that he said we could. It's a tie, but he said you can't both be valedictorian. So he said we've chosen you. He says when 2 people ride a horse, one of them has to ride behind. And he said, we've chosen you to be the one that rides behind. He said, we figure you can handle it better than Florence can. And so he just said, instead of, if you'll just remember that 2 people always, that you have to share that, and somebody always has to be the winner and somebody the loser. And so he said, I think you can handle it, and I think you can grow and learn from it. So Florence was the valedictorian, and I was the one that rode behind. And I gave the class history and the class poem. But that was, I don't know, I think maybe we ought to erase that. I don't know.
No, go on.
Well, while I was working out in Roosevelt in 1921, Earl,
Well, now, go back to those skirts, because you were telling me about those skirts and those cute outfits that Grandma French made for the two of you.
well, I did.
Okay, and Grandma she never paid for
Oh,
her.
I'm not going to tell you
Never
that.
took, oh, well, then I will. She never took a penny for anything, they never even offered to pay for them, did they?
No, Mother always did it, and Florence would stay with us sometimes for a week. But I don't like to tell this.
Go on, that shows you need to.
Mother, Mrs. Well, the mother of the other girl sent in a couple of baskets of strawberries, couple of cups of strawberries, and in the summer, when it was after we were about either, I guess it was while we were still in senior year, and she told Florence that to tell Mother, she says, tell Mrs. Prince that'll be 75 cents. So Mother paid her the 75 cents, but it really hurt her. And so things from then just kind of started not being quite as cozy as they were.
Kind of cooled off a little.
Cooled off, yeah.
Made all those clothes and then said thanks by
75 cents for a couple of baskets.
Yeah.
But we were kind of...
That's life, huh?
Mm-hmm. But, well, do you want me to tell you about when Earl came to...
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether I'm up to this or not. When Earl graduated from the BYU, he got his degree from the BYU in 1921, and he came out to Roosevelt to teach.
Now, were you still in high school then?
No, that was the year I graduated.
Oh, okay.
I never went to high school with Earl.
No, I knew you didn't go to high school, but you were still in school when he came
No, I
out.
was graduated. I was working in the bank.
Okay.
And he lived down to Orser's. He boarded down there. So he and Jessie got acquainted, and one day at lunchtime, he'd only been there a few days, and he came in he walked downtown. I guess it was on a Saturday, because I don't know. We walked out of the bank, and there's Jessie and me, and Jessie and I, and we met Earl, and she made me acquainted with him, and I didn't get excited. I didn't think anything about it, but
Just some other guy, huh?
he said, but Earl said, he says, there's the girl I'm going to marry. Well, I was going, not steady, but I had a boyfriend that I think is one of the reasons that made Mother and Dad decide to leave Roosevelt, because this other guy's Dad said to my dad one day, what are we going to do about our kids? And then Dad says, what about them? And he says, well, I'm afraid they're getting serious. And Dad says, no, I don't think so. And he says, well, you just mark my words, they're getting serious. So Dad came home and asked me if I was getting serious with this Lloyd, and I said, heavens, no. But anyway, it scared Mother and Dad a little bit, and they didn't want me to they didn't want to stay out there. They wanted to move back to Provo and give the kids a better chance to go to school. And so Lloyd I'd been going with him most of the time. But I don't know, I had a little tiff with him for about something. And Jessie liked him. And she wanted me to patch it up. And so Earl had only been out there 2 or 3 days, about the end of the first week, and Jessie fixed up a party. She, her husband taught school at a little school about 5 miles out in the county, and it's just Jessie said, how about we make a little party and go down there and dance in the school. So we made up the party, and I helped plan it, and I guess we must have taken picnic lunch because there was nothing down there, only just the schoolhouse and a record to dance by. And then, so there was about 6 or 8 of us, and Jessie was figuring that she was doing this mainly to get, she wanted to get Earl acquainted a little bit, and she was doing it to get me and Lloyd back together again. And so we all met out there in the horses, and we all had horses. And as we went to rein out, Earl and I just reined our horses in together, and we rode together out there. It's about 5 miles. And we rode and we walked and we walked and we rode and got off, and we hit it off real good together. And so when we got out there and we had a good time, I suppose we haven't danced with everybody, but I don't remember that. But I know we were a little bit slow getting in because we got off and let our horses parted away and walked. And then when we came back, I think I had 1 or 2 dates with Earl, but he got a little bit scared of something. He said Wally. He didn't think Wally liked him.
He probably gave him an evil eye.
Wally looked him over because Wally took awful good care of me. And he looked him over real good. When we go to a dance or anything, Wally was good to take me to a dance, and we always went together, and he wouldn't let a guy bring me home. And he'd say, if I wanted to, and he always would tell if a guy had wanted to dance with me that Wally didn't like, he'd just tell him no. So he took pretty good care of me then. He likely scared Earl out, and we didn't have too much. I went with Earl on and off several times, but we didn't really get serious any of the time. And Mother was a little bit skeptical too, because she thought that maybe Earl was leading me on a little bit, and she didn't want him to lead me on. So we didn't go together hardly any during the winter. I don't think, maybe 1 or 2 times. I don't remember, only 1 or 2 times of going with Earl. And then in the spring, they had the Mutual put on a play, and it there's a copyrighted play. I don't remember the name of it, but anyway, in order to, we just called it Soap. And in the play, Earl was the what do you call the
Leading man?
he was the leading man, and I was the secretary. And so when we go to the rehearsals, we got rid of a lot of our inhibitions, and we're having a good time in rehearsing.
You were a secretary in the play, or you were a secretary?
No, I was a secretary in the play.
Okay.
And the director he took a part in it too. But I'll go back just a little bit before we got before the play came off. I kind of made up with Lloyd enough that, and I went out with him a few times. And there was a guy up in a fellow up in Ioka that used to come down, and I went out with him some. And whenever he'd come down, he'd bring me a big box of candy. He'd always go over to the drugstore and write out his check. And then when I'd work in the bank the next day, I'd know how much he paid for the candy. But he always brought me a box of chocolates. And Lloyd gave me a present or two. And I didn't like them. I didn't like that, but I didn't dare give them back to him. So anyway, when it came the week ready for the play, here's where I sent Lloyd an invitation to come to the play. And I sent the guy up in Ioka an invitation and invited him down.
Boy, are you playing with fire.
And
Mother, that's a no-no.
That's a no-no, that's for sure. And when the night of the play,
You the same as had 2 dates for
I
that
had
play.
2 dates. 2 people come to the play and watch, and they came just on account of me. And in the meantime, this Mr. Wolf, the director, wrote a little note on one of the notes that I was supposed to take into this leading man, and he says, "You love him, and you know you do." He says, "You better not try to deny it, because it shows on you." And
Now this was in the passage.
no, that was to me.
But he wrote you the note to take into Pappy's,
Yeah.
or on a paper to take. So, okay.
You love him, and you know you do.
And he was talking about Pappy.
Yeah. And so the night the play came off, Mother went over to the play. I don't remember where Dad was. He just worked and sold horses and livestock and stuff, and so he was gone quite a little bit. But Mother went over to the play with me, and when it was all over, Earl asked me to go home with him, to let him walk me home, and I said, "I've got those guys down in the, what am I going to do about them?" And he said, "Well, we'll slip out the back door." And we left Mother to tell those guys that we'd gone.
Oh, boy.
I don't know how she handled that, but anyway, when the crowd all cleared out, she said, "Here they are, 2 guys standing there looking at each other, wondering what was going on." Well, from then on, Earl and I started to get serious.
Now that was entirely contrary to the way Pappy was with us kids.
What do you mean?
No way could we slip out like that.
Oh, no. Gosh. I've thought of that a lot of times. If we'd have done that, if you kids had done
Yeah.
that, he'd have had a fit.
Nothing doing, boy. You.
But it was Earl's idea. He said, come on, let's get out of here. And we went out the back door, and Mother stood there with my suitcase, and those two guys, and she had to tell them that I'd gone. I feel sorry yet for the way I treated them and the way I treated her. But that was after we came right shortly after that. School in Roosevelt that year, they ran out of money, and they only had enough money to. And this is kind of funny, but they only had enough money for to keep 3 people on, and Earl was out there.
3 teachers. Now, how many did they normally have teaching?
Well, they had
About.
Schwanke was the principal. Charles Schwanke, he was Samoan, but he was one of the brightest men I've ever met, and he was a real pusher. He pushed everybody. And I don't know, they had a music teacher. And
So would they have 6, 10, or?
Yeah, they had about 6 or 7 or 8 teachers. We had a good high school.
Okay.
And but that was the year that I graduated before that, and this is the year after I graduated that they only had enough money they said for 7 months. Or if they stayed and let the school go to full length, they'd run it on with 3 teachers. And so that's what they did. And Earl was teaching woodwork. That was what he went out there for. But he wound up teaching physiology and science. I don't know, music. He had all of those things that he had prepared or he'd taken in school, but they weren't in line with what he graduated in or figured, that he'd teach school in. So there was Earl and Cree Evans and Schwanke that finished the school year out. Just those 3 teachers. Well, turn it off a minute.
Okay.
But when we lived out to Roosevelt, of course we rode horses, and we all had horses. And I had this is my horse. We called him Rock. And he was a pretty good racehorse. I never rode him in a race myself, but my brother Clark and Wally, both of them, rode him in races. And they never let me ride in one of the races out there. I don't know why, but
I don't know why you didn't either.
I don't either. But anyway, the boys like to ride races, and this is a picture of my brother Clark and my horse, and this came out in the Desert News. He ran one of the races out there, and they wrote a nice article and said this horse was one of the fastest around in the basin. And he'd run quite a few races, and this was the horse that was mine, and we called him Rock. And when after my folks left Roosevelt in the spring, about February or March, I believe they left early in the spring, and I went out. Well, when we leave there, we used to go to the, when we lived out to Roosevelt, we used to go to the, when we lived out to Roosevelt, we used to go to the, when we lived out to Roosevelt, we used to go to the, when we lived out to Roosevelt, we used to go to the, when we lived out to Roosevelt, we used to go to the, when we lived out to Roosevelt, we used to go to the, when we lived out to Roosevelt, we used to go to the, when we lived out to Roosevelt, we used to go to the, when we lived out to Roosevelt, we used to go to the, when we lived out to Roosevelt, we used to go to the, when we lived out to Roosevelt, we used to go to the, when we lived out to Roosevelt, we used to go to the, when we lived out to Roosevelt, we used to go to the, when we lived out to Roosevelt, we used to go to the, when we lived out to Roosevelt, we used to go to the, when we lived out to Roosevelt, we used to go to the, when we lived out to Roosevelt, we used to go to the, when we lived out to Roosevelt, we used to go to the, when we lived out to Roosevelt we used to ride up around White Rocks and
Now,
White Rocks.
White Rocks.
White Rocks country was Indian country,
Okay.
and they had Fort Duchesne was only about 2.5 miles east of Roosevelt on the road to Vernal, and there was a big fort out there, and that was all Indian relics and things like that. There's quite a lot of Indians out there at the time, and
They weren't all modernized and
oh no, they had a trading post out there, and a lot of them could talk and trade all right, and a lot of Indians that came in the bank could talk, and could talk, you know.
but there were a lot that weren't.
There are a lot that weren't, that we just learned to know what they wanted. But we quite often, every spring, they'd have a great big powwow up at White Rocks, and they'd have Indian dances, and it was they wouldn't let they'd let people watch, and you were welcome to go up there and watch, but we never participated or anything. But a lot of times we rode up there and watched the dances. You can see these are all Indian dancing. The Indian dances, they'd line up and go forward and back and do their Indian dances and their rain dance, and then they'd have a regular powwow. And we'd ride up and watch them.
And you've got 1921 on there.
Well, this is 1921 I've got on this, but we did this all the time.
Oh, okay.
It was, I think I rode up there and watched them dance for quite a few years before that.
Now, did you ride up in that car?
No, well, I don't know, no. I rode up on the horse.
Okay.
And we were, I had a camera, and I don't remember much ever having a camera, but I had a camera on my, in my hand, and I was going to take a picture of one of these Indians who's on a horse. And as I looked up to focus just a little bit better, here was this old Indian just swinging that bottle around just like this, and he was taking dead aim at my head. And I saw him, and I dropped the camera, and he dropped his bottle, or he would have had me a dead Indian.
Who were you with?
I don't remember who I was with then.
Just a group of you.
Just a group of us went up. But
They didn't like to have the pictures taken.
that was
Okay, now I cut you off there. So that was an absolute no-no to take an Indian's picture.
Oh, that's for sure. And I guess I didn't know that, because I wouldn't have been stupid enough to have been trying to take your picture.
No, but you lived dangerously.
I lived more dangerously than I realized, I guess. And anyway, it wasn't uncommon for me to go up there, because we went up there with different groups. We went up with the Mutual and things like that. So after my folks left Roosevelt and went out to Provo, and they left me in Roosevelt because I had a job, and they really didn't know what they were going to do or where they were going when they got to Roosevelt or to Provo. Yeah, so they thought it was better for me to stay and work and have a little bit of money coming in than to take me out and take me to come with them. And so Mother didn't know what she didn't know where I was going to live, and she asked Mrs. Orsher if I could come out and live out there. And Earl was still out there. He was boarding out there. And Afton Carroll was boarding there, and she was teaching school at one of those little schools between. I don't think she taught at Fort Duchesne, but I believe there was a little school just about in between the two of them, and she taught there. So Mrs. Orsher said I could live with, or I could room with Afton if I wanted to. And Mother made me promise. Earl and I were just, well, we were friendly then, but she made me promise that if I went out there and lived, that I'd stay I'd stay upstairs, and Earl lived downstairs. Earl was down in the basement. And Mrs. Orsher said, well, if she'll promise that she'll stay upstairs, she can come out and room with Afton. So that was what I did, and I kept my word pretty good. A few times we sat down in the basement and talked.
You mean you weren't even supposed to go down and talk to him, huh?
Mm-mm. No, I was supposed to keep my distance, but I don't know. I was telling you about this Indian stuff, wasn't I?
Mm-hmm.
Afton and there's Afton Carroll, and Axel Birch was a good friend of Afton's. She was going with him. And so Afton and Axel and Earl and I don't know whether there's another couple or not, I don't remember. But we decided one night to go up. There was a whole lot of graves up around the White Rocks County, Indian graves. They were just kind of mounded, you know. And people were robbing the Indian graves and getting their jewelry and their pottery and stuff like that. They had to stop it. But one night we decided to go up, to ride up there and ride around in the Indian graves and go up and we dared each other to reach down in one of those graves. And so we talked Earl into, we got off from our horses, and I've thought of this last night. If the air was just still and it was dark as pitch, and you could feel the tension, you could feel the horses felt tension. It was spooky. And if anything had happened, those horses would have taken out, and there we'd have been left stranded up there in that country, or 7 or 8 miles away from home, and left to walk home in the dark, I guess. But anyway, it was just pitch black, and we got off from our horses, and I think Axel reached down and he got something out, but Earl got scared, and he just tore a piece of the canvas off, and when we got out, we got on our horses, and we rode like heck, and those horses just went tearing. It's a wonder we didn't have trouble that night. But for a long time after we were married, I had that little piece of canvas that Earl tore off in that Indian grave. Kept it. But then there was something else I was going to tell you about. Turn it off a minute, like, oh, you can't.
About the Indians?
No, I pretty well, the Indians and the racehorse. Let me This is a picture of when Earl lived out to Oysters. And this is Earl. This is Earl.
Yeah, I can tell which one. He's the tall one.
Earl, and then Afton Carroll, and then me, and then Lloyd Bowman.
Oh. Great.
And this was during, well, we were friendly like that off and on all the time.
Even after you dumped him at the...
Oh, this is before. This is before. This is
okay.
While we were out there. I'm kind of getting things kind of mixed up a little bit, but anyway, this is I just showed you some of that, and am I ready to come home? Oh, I wanted to tell you about while I was working in the bank and while I was living down to Mrs. Orsher's, there was one little guy used to come in the bank, and he always came to me and asked me, and I waited on him, but I never paid any attention to him. And one day after my mother and dad had left Roseville, or had gone to Provo, and I was staying down to Orsher's, I got a letter in the mail, and it was a big long letter, and he asked me if he could start seeing me and taking me out with the intention of matrimony. And he said he'd been watching me in the bank, and he thought I'd make a good mother. And his darling Anna was died, and she left 5 kids. And he thought I'd make a good mother to his 5 children, and be a good replacement for his darling Anna. And he asked if it was all right if he started to see me. Well, I thought it was funny. I thought it was just the biggest hoot. and I just got the biggest kick out of it. And I took it and showed it to Mrs. Arsher, and it made her so mad. And she took it and wrote and called that guy up and told him what no, this isn't Jessie, this is the old lady Arsher. And she called him up and she said, don't you dare think of anything like that. She said, a young girl like that marry an old guy like you with 5 kids, she said, don't ever give that another thought. And so I sent the letter to Mother, and thought it was awful funny. Well, right now, Mother phoned back to Mrs. Arsher, and it wasn't very long after that, and they decided that I should come home.
Get Eileen up here quick, huh?
She didn't want any more of that. So that was just one of the funny things that started that got me to come to Roseville, or to Provo. I don't remember. I don't know how. Somebody brought me in it just took me. It was coming from Roosevelt to Provo, and I don't remember what it was I rode out with, but I remember coming to Provo on Decoration Day, on Memorial Day, and riding through Provo and all of the flowers and decorations on the cemetery. Oh, I thought that was the prettiest sight I'd ever seen, because nearly all we ever saw out in Roosevelt were Indian paintbrushes and yellow rose of Texas.
You were lucky to have the yellow rose of Texas.
Yeah, and Indian paintbrushes and sago lilies and things like that. But anyway, I thought that was beautiful, and I got home. I got to Provo. I don't remember how I got out to where Mother and Dad lived. They found a ranch. They rented a farm right close to where the Provo Temple is. It's just a kind of a platform off, and I'm not right sure, but it was known then as the Sawyas farm, and Mother and Dad moved out there, and it was about, well, it was about from downtown Provo to walk up to the temple. What did that be? A couple of miles?
Oh, yeah.
2 miles or a little better, wouldn't it?
Yeah, easy.
So when we got up there, I went down right shortly. I went down and got kind of registered or I didn't get registered. I went down in the BYU and I took I audited some classes. I never really got registered in the BYU because Mother and Dad needed. They didn't have any cash crop coming in, and when I left Roosevelt, then I needed to get another job. So I went down to I don't know how I found out about Smoot Lumber, but I went down to Smoot Lumber, which was down by the railroad tracks. It's on about 600 South and University Avenue. And I got a job down there as a typist and bookkeeper. And I don't remember how much, $70, I believe, so I got down there a month. Yeah, I know it is. I only got $70 a month, but anyway, that was some cash coming in for the family until they could find something better. And in September, my mother and Dad moved down into was it the Keeler place? I believe that's it.
Upon.
It was 287 East 2nd North. It was a great big house that had a place out in the back for the barns, and they had there was a place for the horses, and there was a place for the cow, and I think we rented it mainly furnished because Mother wouldn't have that much furnishing. I don't know. And she she advertised for school boarders, or for BYU boarders, and she also advertised.
Now that's in front of the Keeler place, isn't it?
Yeah. No, this is in front of, this is down there to, down on,
Center Street.
yeah, where Morgan used to have his offices.
Okay.
No, I don't have a picture of that house in there.
Oh, okay.
But Mother moved down there and took in board, and they advertised for boarders. And I paid the first month's rent on the house. It took my $70, but they moved in there for $70, and it must have been furnished because I know there was a nice leather davenette in there and a nice leather chair, and of course Mother had dining room things like that, but she wouldn't have enough. She'd have to had beds and things like that to take care of that many rooms. But that was that was in the fall of the fall of 1922. Now I was going to go back a little bit and tell you when Earl came, when I came home from I don't remember whether. I don't remember writing to Earl and telling him where we were. I don't know how he found out where I was. Found out rather the Sawayan place was, the Sawayas lived. But it was a fairly big farm, and I guess most people around there knew where it was. So one day after I'd only been home for a little while, one Sunday afternoon, Earl showed up up at the farm, and he was tired out. He'd walked from Spanish Fork up to the depot, or the old interurban. He'd walked from there. Was that somebody came in?
Oh. He walked from Spanish Fork
He'd walked from Spanish Fork up to the interurban, up to the
in Provo?
no, caught the interurban in Provo.
Oh.
And then he
Okay, he walked from Leland
walked from Leland up to Spanish
up
Fork.
to Spanish Fork to catch the interurban.
Yeah.
Then got the interurban and rode to Provo.
Yeah, and then he came over to Provo, and then he walked from, and the interurban, or the depot is way down there, you know, where the depot and he turn it off and I'll tell you.
No, go ahead.
All right, he walked from there up to Sawaya's, and that was about there's 3 or 4 miles. And when he got to our place, he was pretty well bushed. So I didn't know he was coming, but Mother was the best hostess of anybody I ever known. She always could find something to eat, and she could make a sandwich and make something good out of whatever there was in the house. So she fixed early lunch, and Dad said, well, Ilene, you better take your friend back down to the depot. And so he said, go hook up the buggy and take him back down to the depot so I can get home before midnight. So we hooked up one of the workhorses to the buggy that we had there. It was kind of like an old Surrey buggy. And I took Earl back down to Provo, and then he walked back out to Spanish Fork, from Spanish Fork back out to Leland.
Gee.
And that was our first visit after we got he got in Roosevelt and I got to Provo, and I'll tell you that. Talk for a little bit about the religion in our lives. And my earliest remembrance of religion was when we were in Panguitch, and I remember going up and bearing my testimony when I was just a little girl in Panguitch, and I'm sure that I felt the Spirit just as strongly then as I've ever felt it. In fact, sometimes I thought I'd like to feel the Spirit as strong as I felt it when I was in Panguitch, and go up and bear my testimony. And I see the rest of you take your little kids and all sit on a row and take up a whole row in church. When we lived in Panguitch, when we left there were 7 of us, 7 children and Mother and Dad. So it'd take the middle side, or the middle row, it'd take a whole bench for us. And I can't ever remember that Mother and Dad having any discipline problems with any of the kids. It seemed to me like we knew we went to church to sit there and be quiet, and everybody did that. It was just part of going to church, was to go there and sit and be quiet and learn what we could. And then when we were out in Roosevelt, I think I had one of the I had an experience that I've never had before, and I don't know whether I've told you about it or not. But we were active in church all the time, and the last year we were there, I was called to be the scribe or the secretary to President Lambert, and he was the state patriarch. He lived not too far from us, and I went over and had my patriarchal blessing on the 13th of February, or on the 12th of February in 1922. And I was so thrilled and impressed with the spirit that Mother and Dad didn't go, but Mother and Lolly went and had their blessings. And while I was taking Lolly's blessing, President Lambert, Patriarch Lambert, got started, and he told Wally his lineage. He placed his hands on it. When he placed his hands on his head and started to talk, something gripped me, and I couldn't make a sound. I couldn't write a thing. Everything went dark. I tried to raise my hand to let Patriarch Lambert know that I wasn't recording and that I wasn't writing, and that I couldn't raise my hand. I couldn't speak or do a thing. I just felt like something was gripping me and was going to just crush me in two. And then I think, I don't know, I must have prayed to the Lord to let me go on, because it let go. And when I got through, when Patriarch Lambert got through, I had a blank, I had Wally's name and his lineage and just the start of it on this page. And I had a blank page there. And I thought, oh, what on earth am I going to do? And I went in the little room that was right next to where Patriarch Lambert did the blessing. And I got down on my knees and asked the Lord, to let me remember, because there was just no way that I didn't have anything to read, and it seemed like just line for line it came back to me what I should write. And when I took it into Patriarch Lambert and told him what had happened, he read it over very carefully, and he said, "The Lord's been with you. You got as near as I can remember what I said." He said, "You've done it." And that's always been a real strong testimony. I'm not going to fall.
Well, Mom, like that, you have to shed a tear or two. That's pretty special.
But
I've never heard you talk about that before.
Well, I never could. I go to tell some of it, and I just feel like I just choke right up. But it is something that I wanted all of you to know. And he gave me a very special blessing. Maybe I better talk about mothers for a few minutes first and get a hold of myself. While we were in Roosevelt, quite a bit of the time, Dad sold. He worked for a commission company, a cattle commission company, and he sold. He was out of town quite a little bit, buying and selling. So I don't remember whether Dad was home when we when we had these blessings taken or not, but Mother and Raleigh went a couple of days apart, and he gave Mother a beautiful blessing, and she was nearly all the time we were in Roosevelt. Mother was Relief Society president, and to be Relief Society, you think back to 1920, back 1915 and 16, and in there, they didn't embalm people, and so if somebody died, Mother and her counselors would go wash and lay out the person that died, and then they'd put formaldehyde packs on them to keep them as long as they could until the funeral, and especially they'd put it around their face. And I think Dad helped a few times. I don't making a wooden coffin, but I can't be sure about that. I don't know where they got the coffins, but I know many a time Mother was a beautiful seamstress, and so there was a good many times she'd be up with the people, the person that was sick or died, and then she'd help wash and lay them out, and then she'd go home and make the burial clothes. And
Now, when you say lay them out, you mean just prepare them, get them ready to...
yeah, that's what she called us, prepare them for burial. They just, and like I said, they keep formaldehyde packs on them to keep them from going dark.
Yeah.
And I remember one neighbor that we had. They lived on the same block that we lived out in Roosevelt, and she had a baby that was sick. She was sick for, I guess it was a week or more. It seemed to me like Mother nearly lived over there and took care of that baby and rocked it and tended it, and then when it died, the mother, it was just like she was afraid of it. She was afraid while it was sick, and Mother just went in there and took care of the baby, and helped with the family, and then she had to take care of preparing it for death or for burial, and make its clothes. And I don't have it now, but for a long time I had a beautiful letter from that family on how much they appreciated what Mother did. And I've had quite a few letters that have found notes in Mother's things that they've written, and told her how much they appreciated her and how much they loved her. And she did make a good Relief Society president.
Well, that'd really take... We'd be in a mess today if we had to stop and make the clothes and everything, wouldn't we?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was well, when you go back and think, well, we didn't have very many paved roads. We didn't have paved roads when we went to Roosevelt. And things were quite... See, I've seen nearly a century of... So things were quite primitive then. Then I was going to tell you that shortly before Earl came home, well, it was in March, President Lambert, or Patriarch Lambert, I don't remember how often he had people come, but it was likely once or twice a month. And so when I got down there one day, and then about the middle of March, Earl was one of the people that was scheduled for a blessing. So so I got to write Earl's blessing, and I was going to tell you, he gave me a beautiful blessing, and there's only one thing that I'm still wondering about, and he said that I'd go on a mission. And I almost felt badly that Earl and I didn't get to go on a mission, because I had that heart attack in '69.
Don't you think your square dancing was a mission?
Well, I like to think that some of the things that we're doing were missions, because we've had an awful lot of contact with a lot of people.
Been an influence on many, many, many more than you would if you'd gone out on a proselyting mission.
But Patriarch Lambert told me that that I'd have peace of mind, and that I'd be able to help other people when they were in trouble. And I've always felt good about that. And he told me I'd have peace of mind, and and he described Earl, told me that I'd marry a man that would be strong in the faith. His faith would be strong, as immovable as the mountains, and we go to the house of the Lord and be sealed, and that we'd have a place in the celestial kingdom, and that's the most comforting. But he also, when we had so much trouble, and I remember earlier when we were talking about when the horse fell on me, and I had that physical problem, that it likely had affected my having children. And so we've been married for 2 years, nearly 2 years, and there was no sign of getting pregnant. Errol and I used to pour over our patriarchal blessings and over and over and over. And the comfort that we got out of it was that the Lord had promised me that no good thing would be withheld. And certainly a family is the best thing that you can have. It's one of the most wonderful blessings you can have is to have a family. So I took solace from that, and I've always taken solace from that. And my patriarchal blessing is good.
Now, you kind of gave us the idea there that you'd been married a couple of years when you had your patriarchal blessings, but that isn't right.
No, I said we'd been married a couple of years before
You jumped forward a ways, didn't you? Okay.
No.
Okay, now go back to your patriarchal blessings.
Well, what I meant to say was that it didn't look like we were going to have children, and we'd been married nearly 2 years, and that's when we got worried.
Yeah.
And that's about all. Only I did want to say that I told you.
You started it.
My beautiful. He described Earl as strong as he's been in his faith, and that he'd take me to the house of the Lord and be married in the temple. And so I guess when Earl and I, all of the kidding we've done about our marriage, there was never any, about our courtship and marriage, there was never any question but what we'd be married in the temple. And I've taken a lot of solace more from my blessing than I have from Earl's, because I felt like the things that that I needed the most, and the things that were to have peace of mind and to be able to have a comforting influence on some of my family and people that I came in contact with. And so I've always felt like it's one of the most comforting things that I've ever had.
Now you started to say something about Pappy's blessing.
Well, Pappy's blessing was, without reading back on it a little bit, I don't remember it as much as I do. Both of us were promised a mission. And like Ruth said, we either have had a mission with our square dancing and all of the people that we've met and had influence on in having wholesome entertainment, and Pat was real good in his meeting, in his square dances and like that. He always let people know that he always brought in a little religious frame or two to let them know about the church or about Preston, how we got started square dancing, and Joseph Smith, or Brigham Young having him a square dance on the plains. So, like that, we've had a lot of good opportunities to preach the gospel or to influence people in the gospel. In the recreation work we've had, and then I had opportunities when I was down to Geneva to influence people.
Yeah, you really did.
There was
And you made a big influence on a lot of people.
yeah, there were people that, well, when we'd have now should I go into this, when we'd have parties down and the at the secretaries' meetings and the bosses' night and places like that, there was always one bowl of punch and a bowl that had liquor in it. And the ones that wanted any liquor would take it, and